Morning, Bree.
Hey, how are you?
Is this a regular Zoom as opposed to a Zoom webinar?
No, this is a webinar. It's already started. We've
Oh,
got
it feels different than normal. Okay.
it. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's some folks on here already. So good morning and afternoon to people. If you want to in the chat, you can say where you're from and please feel free to ask any questions in there or use the Q&A as well. And yeah, we'll probably get started in a couple minutes, minute or two, Donald, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, just let me know when you feel like we have quorum and we can begin.
Sounds good. We'll give it one more minute again for anyone that's attending. Feel free to write in the chat where you're from if you want, and use the Q&A if you have questions, or write them in the chat as well. I will be monitoring this for Donald as we get going, but I think we're probably good to go, Donald, if you want to get started. We've got 14 folks on the call.
Okay. Um, actually, are the attendees audio enabled? Because it's better for me if we just talk, actually, as opposed to write.
Yes, they should be, but I'll make sure that that's what's going on. So,
Okay.
um, all right.
Uh, yeah, well, thanks, Bree, and hello, everyone. I'm Donald. I'm a sales engineer with Port. I'm based in New York Metro. As I alluded to, I prefer a conversational style, so this is a presentation, but you know, I find it more valuable when it's interactive. So feel free to chat with me, ask me questions in real time as I speak, even. If you're uncomfortable doing that, feel free to write as well. But you know, I see this as a conversation, right? So it's a getting started webinar, but I'm prepared to go in pretty much any direction you guys want. I imagine there's a variety of folks on the call with different levels of experience and different expectations. So I'm flexible. Okay. So that said, I will go ahead and get started. So I'm going to dive right into sort of demoing as opposed to giving you guys slides, and I'll kind of talk about why I think IDP and port are valuable in the context of demo. Um, so let me start sharing. So assuming everyone can see my browser, I'm going to kind of talk about what I think are the high points of IDP and what those look like in port. I'll use a combination of assets from our demo site, as you're seeing right now in my browser at demo.getport.io. I can show more detail if needed or desired in one of my private port accounts, but we'll be as high level or as we can go as deep as you guys would like it as well. So at the highest point, you know, what is IDP and why is it useful? So internal developer portal, the overarching goal in my view, is to provide a unified layer of access to an organization's DevOps platform. The DevOps platform being simply define the set of tools and processes connecting those tools that your DevOps or platform or any other team has put together to enable your technical members to do their best work, to enable developers to deploy without, having to manage all the machinery themselves, right? Pipelines, etc. So the idea is to be a singular layer of interacting with that platform because it's often complex, right? And developers and other users are often finding that they have difficulty using it. Even if it's as simple as for deploying a service, even if it's as simple as writing a Helm chart, often it's an error-prone process, right? So we want to provide a layer to all such capability. We also want to provide a layer of access for all information about the same sorts of things. What is the state of my services, the state of my infrastructure, etc., without having to have intimate knowledge of the tooling that you would otherwise need to have to get access to those data. So that said, we have two sort of major tentpoles of capability. One called catalog, where we're organizing data, okay, which is the second sort of tentpole I talked about. The other called self-service, where we're enabling developers and other users to get work done without having to interact directly with DevOps tools and processes or even people, right? Okay. So from a cataloging point of view, the most common thing people want to catalog in internal developer portal is services and service level data, right? So we want a unified place to be able to access information such as what services do we have, and for any given services, what does it do, what is its state, etc., who's responsible for it. We want a common place to access all these data. It's common that there isn't a common place in organizations, and if there is, sometimes it's tribal knowledge to know where it is even. So we want a central place where we can come and say, I want to know something. Do we have a service that does pricing, right? Because I need something priced, right? So I can see here that we have a pricing service. I can go into it, and then I can see all the important data about that service. So I can see that it's written in Python. I can see that it's considered a mission critical service, which would be sort of custom data. I can see sort of kind of standard infographic data about the service as well. What are the number of incidents it currently has outstanding, who's on call for it, etc. So links to observability, dashboards, its repo, etc. So we can have a wide variety of information that, as you can already tell, are called from different places in the DevOps platform, right? So we have a singular place for anyone who's interested to access those data. They don't need a license to the incident management tooling necessarily, or PagerDuty in this case. They don't need potentially a license to observability tools. They don't need to understand where we store data, such as the tier of a service, right? And where those places change over time. We can always access it in this singular place, right? So we're solving the information gap and information availability problem. You can see this page for this object, this pricing service is called a catalog page, and there's a host of other data about the service on here. You can see that we have some metrics about the service. We call these scorecards, another important IDP concept. How do we measure our services and other assets? So we can measure them in different ways. And then we can have all kinds of charts and widgetry to give us quick information about the asset as well. Okay. So this is the
Donald, sorry, real quick. Some folks are having a problem hearing you. I don't know if you can like speak up or make it louder. So just wanted to
yeah, let me check. Is it better now?
it is for me, yes.
Okay, yeah. Zoom has this thing where it turns my microphone volume down just randomly.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks. Didn't mean to interrupt. Thank you. All
No, I'm glad you
right,
did if folks are having
that
trouble.
everyone said yes, much better. Thanks.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so there's a host of other data you can see about the asset here as well, right? So you can associate other data as well, such as documentation. If you want to have API specs, you can post them into the catalog page for the object as well. So this is the information side of things. So now we want to enable users to take action on the information as well, right? So we want to enable the user to maybe deploy the service or to maybe create a build of the service or anything of those sorts. Tasks where they would normally have to be intimately familiar with the DevOps process, the platform process to do those things. So if they're using port instead, they can just have access to a simple action menu like this, which reveals to them all the types of things they can do on this object, right? So I can do things like deploying the service. I can do things like locking and unlocking the service. I can do things like changing who's on call, etc. for the service, all from this sort of simple action menu. Okay, so now when I want to take action, instead of having to know, what CI/CD tooling we're using and what the processes are around those and getting approval and access, et cetera, et cetera. All I need to do, if I'm authorized to do so, is to click that button and fill out the form that's presented to me. So in this case, for deploying, all I need to do is choose an image that I want to deploy, and these data would be called from potentially wherever images are stored, ECR, other image repositories. In this case, I just choose an image and I just choose somewhere I want to deploy it, and then I click the execute button. Okay, so this form serves as the interface to the action. Okay, and so the form can take any shape that it needs to take. In this case, it takes 2 inputs for deployment, but maybe your deployment process requires 10 or 20 inputs or whatever it is, and those inputs are dependent upon each other, etc. You can express that data collection process, whatever it is, and whatever is necessary in a form like this, and then all the user has to do is basically answer the questions that are asked. And so let me talk now about kind of how portals are usually rolled out. So if a company acquires a portal and IDP technology, usually there is a team who's responsible for sort of building out and exposing the capability that are available to the teams that are consuming it. Consumer teams would be like software engineering teams or SREs or other teams that need to access this capability, right? So these forms are developed by your internal team, right, to collect the data they need to access the process they've built, deployment in this case on whatever tooling they've built it around. So I click execute and then port interfaces with the CI/CD process to get that work done on behalf of the user. So I execute, some process ensues. I'm a software engineer, whoever I am. I am blind to that process as I'd love to be, right? I don't really need to know the ins and outs of how deployment happens. I just need to know that it happened and happened successfully and that my service is now running, right? Because my core competency and what I enjoy doing is developing my service, not kind of caring for out in the wild, right? So this gives me an easy way to get those things done, so I can focus on feature development and other core tasks, right? So, and feel free, is anyone have questions either audibly or in the chat at this point? Bree, do you see anything? Yeah.
No, there's nothing in the chat or Q&A at this point, but
Okay, so we'll keep moving. If anybody does have a question, just feel free to chime in. So, as a software engineer now, I can take for granted that that process is completed because Port is telling me it was successful, and now I can go back to the catalog page and start to introspect what happened there if I need to, or I can proceed on with feature development, right? But I probably want to know in more detail what happened, so I can go back to the catalog page uh, for the pricing service, and now I'll talk about a few things that are unique to Port. Okay. Okay. So because now we just did a deployment and we want to reason about the success or failure or other things around questions around that deployment, right? So a few things about this page, though. So these data that you see here about this service are all custom defined, right? So you have the ability to describe your service however you would like to within your organization, right? And so that's most IDPs provide a sort of a fixed service definition that is inflexible. But as we all know, everybody reasons about the same things differently, right? People think about services differently, they think about deployments differently, et cetera. So you get to model your world as it is, okay, not as we tell you it should be. So then secondarily and importantly, we can reason about the total context of all of our assets in the world. So I just did a deployment on the pricing service. I might, I want to reason about that deployment. So in Port, we have a concept called relationships where we can reason not only about just the service, but we can reason about other types of objects around the service as well. So we call those related objects, related entities. So I can go to my related entities and I can see a host of things that are related to the service I've been talking about so far, one of which are deployments of the service. So Port is connected to our CI/CD tooling, whatever that is, whatever shape that takes, and we're pulling in the data about the deployment. So I just did a self-service action that deployed a service. So now conceivably, I come into the catalog entry and I can see the status of that deployment. This is demo data, right? So this wasn't the deployment I just did, but conceivably, right, I go in here and I can see this the status of that deployment. I can see a host of other things. For example, if there was a deployment and it was successful, there's probably a running artifact somewhere, an instance of the service. I might want to reason about that instance or all instances of the service running. So I can reason about those here as well. So I have three instances of the service currently running. One is in production. Let's say that's the one I just deployed or what I'm interested in. I can go and inspect that further as well. So I can click on this instance of the pricing service running in prod, and I'm going to be presented with a whole set of new data, other data, right? What is this data? Well, just as we saw about the deployment, this is context relevant data about this instance of the service running somewhere in your environment, right? And so now no more going to the AWS or Azure console and searching for my instance and trying to find the right tags in Datadog to try and get basic data about is my thing running and how is it running? No, I just can come into port and I can just follow the breadcrumbs, right? So I can tell that's currently out of sync, otherwise healthy. I can look at its labels and tags. I can, see if it has any New Relic issues. I have a link to a Grafana chart about this service, right? So all the requisite data for me to operate this thing is here as well. Okay, and then the story is that Port has a full data model, so you can really represent any sort of data, any sort of connections between those data that you wish, for example. So the the running instance of the service called the workload here is probably related to other stuff that's useful to know about the instance, right? So let's take a look at what those might be. We might want to know, hey, what cloud account is it running in? What packages does it depend on, for example. So does it have any current observability alerts, right? So now I can get all this rich, fine-grained data about discrete objects, okay, in my environment, but also the relationships between those things. So now I have the ability to answer really, really powerful questions, okay, about my environment, as opposed to just getting information, right? And this is a capability that is unique to Port, this relationship modeling, right? Okay. Okay, and then all the other objects, just like the service, have actions that can be associated with them. So we might want to operate this instance of the service. We might want to sync it or resync it, right? Or promote it. So every action that you can do on an object is expressed in a context-specific action menu on that object's catalog page as well. So it makes it really, really easy for all sorts of users, not just developers, to do the same sort of thing, right? Other users in the organization face the same problem, right? Developers, folks that are on call, SREs, there's all this rich data locked in the platform that's hard to get out and hard to reason about. Port makes that both those problems easy, right? There's all this rich capability locked in the platform that's hard to access and use successfully, consistently, right? Port solves that problem. It's all in the same place, context oriented, and accessible to just the users who need it. Okay. So we've been looking at sort of individual object descriptions and catalog pages, but we want to take this to a higher level and build out immediately useful experiences for specific users, right? In the form of dashboards, right, that answer specific questions immediately or solve specific problems or concerns immediately. Before I move on to dashboards, I'll talk a little bit more about actually, no, it's a good time to transition over to dashboards. So let's talk about the different sort of dashboard experiences that we have over here. So I've been talking mostly from the developer persona, but as I mentioned, lots of other users have the same problem, right, for different sorts of data and actions, right? So we'll take a look at some of those. For the developers, though, all the data and all the actions that I've shown you so far are even better consumed in my view in specific, even more specific context, right? So we have a set of dashboards built out in this demo environment to solve specific types of concerns that developers typically have, right? You could build your own, right, that are unique to your organization, unique to your teams. But by way of demo, so here's a pretty cool dashboard that I think is cool called the Feature Development Toolkit. Okay. So the idea here is that now I'm going even beyond just the raw sort of catalog data and the actions to build out an experience, right, for specific users. So the problem here is developers, when they need to do something like take a feature from PR to prod, there's not just one action or one bit of information they need. There's a host of different things along the way that they're going to need to do or learn how to do, and that they often forget how to do in between, right? So we have a dashboard that puts all the sort of actions that are necessary to take a feature from PR to prod in our organization on a single page, right? So Mr. Developer, you need to create a new feature, you just come to this page, and if you need to create a new service, here's an action, you just fill out this form and you can get a new service, okay? If you need a temporary development environment, you can get a temporary development environment, again, just by filling out this form, and it can even expire on a given time frame, okay? If you need infrastructure, you can just come out and again fill out forms, okay, to get EC2 instances, RES databases, S3 buckets, whatever it is. So the idea here is that we're solving a specific concern, PR to prod, for a specific sort of user, right? Similarly, informationally, I might need to understand the status of feature flags on my service or another service that I'm interacting with or need to interact with. So instead of learning, just the right ways to use Launch Starkly or whatever the feature flagging tool du jour is today, that we're using, I can just come to a dashboard like this, and I can instantaneously get the data that I need, what feature flags are turned on or off for a particular service, and I can even access self-service actions to affect change on those things as well. I can change feature flags on my service or another service if I have permission to do that just by executing this self-service action. Right? So I can execute this, again, fill out the form, and I can change the status of feature flags, right? Without having to know whatever the tooling, even knowing what the tooling is to do that behind the scenes, okay? So again, dashboards solve specific concerns for specific types of users. Maybe I am a leader, right? And I'm not interested in instantaneous data about discrete objects. I need summary data about my organization. So we have a set of dashboards built out for engineering leaders. You could build different ones. These are examples. So for example, I might want to understand what my DORA metrics are, right? If I'm a technical user, I might want to know these numbers for my service or some set of services. If I'm a leader, I need to understand this for the entire organization, right? And understand what benchmarks that I've set and if we're tracking toward those and how I can affect change in the right direction. So I've got my instantaneous deployment frequency here, and I can track it over time along with um, my MTTR and whatever other of my core metrics, right? So if I'm a leader, maybe I also want to understand the impact of my decisions. I'm contemplating ways, we have certain goals and benchmarks. We need to improve on our DORA metrics and a certain amount for certain reasons. How can we do this? So we're doing different things. Maybe one thing we're doing is adding code assistance tools, AI code assistance, right? GitHubs and cursors of the world. We want to make our devs, help them be more efficient and more secure and all these things by using AI. So we want to track over time if our teams are even using, Copilot in this case. So what is our adoption, by way of license counts over time? And can we plot those against our core DORA metrics to see if code assistance if we can make a reasonable conclusion that they're having a positive or negative impact on these particular metrics. So we can see our MTTR and our deployment frequency over time. They do not appear to be trending, not all of them, in the right direction. So maybe we want to take a deeper look into what's happening here, if there's a correlation or causation or not. So Port is giving me the ability, because again, all of my data are in a singular place, my engineering data and decisions and actions. I can understand the impact of decisions that I'm making to a certain extent, right? So we can build out other sorts of data around this, etc. Same thing for security folks.
All right, real quick, Donald, someone asked
Sure.
what the formula used for DORA measurement is. I don't know if
Is
you,
this in the chat?
yes, in the chat.
Let me read it. Oh, I don't think I can see the chat. Can you read it again?
You
Yeah.
can, oh, sorry, it's in the Q&A. So it says, what is the formula used for DORA measurement?
Okay. Okay, that's a really, really great question. Um, and so for anyone on the call who is very familiar with door metrics, and for those who might not be, and I'm no expert either, but what I do know is that most door metrics or most aspects of them are subjective, right? There is no fixed formula, right? And most people who are interested in door metrics don't realize that, right? And if you go and get a tool that does door metrics, the chances are it's going to do it in a certain way on certain data, and you might not want that, right? But if you're doing door metrics in Port, because everything is custom, we give you sort of our opinion on sort of useful ways to calculate them. But because everything is customized and customizable, you can actually choose what data sources you want to use to compute your metrics, PagerDuty, GitHub, something else. You can choose the formulas you want to use to calculate the specific metrics and the definitions of different parts of those formulas. Like for deployment frequency, what is a deployment? You have the ability to characterize that specifically in Port, right? So the answer to your question is there is no formula, no fixed formula, right? You get to define that based on your needs and your desires. And that's unique, again, unique to Port, so far as I know. Um, uh, as an IDP certainly, but even in kind of purpose-based tools for computing engineering metrics. Yeah. Great question. Okay. So for security folks, same thing, right? They need data from the platform, just like everyone else. They have, a host of tools that they use, and a changing cast of tools. I've been in security at different points in my career, so a constantly changing cast of tools, usually, right? And so usually, so if I'm a security engineer, maybe I can have a dashboard like this one, we're aggregating, and you see we have many dashboards even just for security, but I can aggregate just my runtime alerts from the various tools that calculate runtime alerts. Okay, in this case, we have two. I've seen people have a lot more than two, but we have Sysdig, Falco in this case, and we have Wiz. So we can aggregate our security relevant data, the bits that are relevant into Port as well, and layer it together with other data to empower our security engineers more even. So I can see in the sysdig alert here, there's a container escape. So I can go into it. Obviously, those are bad, okay, generally speaking. But, as a security professional, usually, I'm not an application engineer. I don't know where the services live and all these things. So usually I just file a report or a Jira issue or something, and, somebody else has to take a look at that. But so because I'm in port, I can have all this other rich context around the security alert, right? So I can say, not only is this a container escape alert, which is what Falco would tell me, I can see the whole relationship model around this container alert. I can see what specific, case resources it is affecting. Right? I can see what specific workload it's affecting, right? And I can, be a bit more creative here. I know it's the ad service, and the likelihood is that's a really important service, so I can know this should be escalated probably, so I can go and there's a bunch of other data here. Probably what I want to know is who to contact about this because this is urgent, probably. So I can go to the service descriptor or the descriptor for this workload, and from this workload, I can find the actual service descriptor. This is the ad service. So from there, I can deduce, who's on call. You is on call right now. Maybe we can reach out and we can work on this, and so we can be a bit more proactive about our security, right, as opposed to reactive and delayed, through the normal ticket filing process. What have you. So the idea is again, just like a software engineer, we can pull the relevant data for this persona into the IDP, layer it on top of other data that generally they wouldn't have access to. I don't know who's on call. I don't have a an on-call license, page duty license as a security professional, right? But because I'm in port, I can deduce that without needing that license, right? So empowering all the users to work better together to solve more problems faster, right? For the organization, right? Um, okay. So that's kind of IDP basics. Now I'll talk about kind of where we're innovating in a couple of different areas. Um, the first area I'll talk about is so most IDPs have a concept, even though I think Port does it better for the reasons I've said, has a concept of catalog, has a concept of self-service. Port extends the idea of self-service, which is enabling some user to do uh, some some platform task while exploring the complexity of that task from them. We extend that model with a concept called automations, where we can actually allow the IDP to react itself to stimuli. For example, you saw me on this page talk about this feature development toolkit dashboard. And one of the actions on here was creating a temporary development environment, right? So we have this environment that I can create. Let's just do it here. So Donald's env. I'll choose a team that I'm on, and when do I want this to expire? And in this case, what services I want deployed in that environment. So I click execute, just like any other self-service action. Some platform task ensues that I don't know about and don't care about because all I want is a development environment, and that's what I get at the end. Okay, so I go here and I can see that it was, oh, it failed. Okay, so I don't have a development environment. So, so let me use an existing one. Let's see, for this narrative. So, okay, on any development environment though, so mine, a couple of them are failing here. But for any of them, I have this concept of a TTL. This one's expired, right? So but the idea here is that this is kind of dynamic data. So in this case, it's a specific type of property import, but the point is that at some point, this data will say it expired. So we can have what we call an automation, which is similar to a self-service action run to clean up, okay, this this temporary development environment. Okay, so that's and for anybody who's curious about the details of self-service and automations, I can dive into those. I won't now. I'll keep it high level unless someone asks me to kind of get through the narrative bits as first. So the idea though is that the automation can react to changes in your catalog data without anyone's prompting. Okay, so Port is the only IDP that has a concept of that, but you can imagine it enables lots of interesting use cases like deletion of temporary assets or intended temporary assets. Other common scenarios are deleting cloud infrastructure, right? Um, so that's automations. So I'll talk about what we're doing on the AI front as well. So so if I go to our homepage here, you've seen me talk about kind of all the rich data that you can bring and model and port and the relationships between those data and how you can ask important questions of those data. Um, that's a really powerful capability that so far as I know you can only do in port because we have these linkages, right? So I can ask a question of a service like the pricing service. Is there an instance of the service running, in prod with Log4j, right? Because I have all this data connected, I can either follow the catalog breadcrumbs or I can build a dashboard that reveals that immediately. So AI is taking that to the next level to allow you to actually just talk to your catalog data or talk about your catalog data in natural language, right? So not even having to kind of chase through the catalog. So if I go to the home page here, we have an example AI agents, and you can build these and put them into anywhere in your portal, basically, that you can put a widget. But essentially, this one allows me to ask questions about the status of tasking data and other data in my code base. So if I come in here, I'm going to get an experience based on who I am as a logged in user because we have RBAC. And so different users can have different views and access to different actions in the portal. But so I might want to know, just like the Plan My Day dashboard. Actually, I didn't show you that dashboard. But before I kind of run this demo, let me show you that Plan My Day dashboard. So in the same sort of set of dashboards for devs, I showed you the feature development toolkit and I showed you the feature flagging dashboard. Here's a simpler dashboard, which is designed to help a developer when they sit down in the morning understand what they should do to move the organization forward the most that day, right? There's a million tasks every dev could do, right? We all have technical debt, etc., right? But what should you do to advance the mission, mostly, right? So we solve that problem by giving them a dashboard that just kind of organizes their PRs, their tasks, their Jira issues, or whatever tasking tool you're using, organizes their stuff and with the proper prioritization. You can write rules that prioritize these things based on whatever prioritizations you want to have as a leadership team, etc., to make it easier for folks to understand what they should be working on. Okay. So I can have a dashboard like this, or I can just have an AI agent that answers the question for me. So I can read the data, or I can just say, hey, and this, I think is the same agent that was on the first page. But the point here is that now there's a language model that's indexed on all the data that you're sending into the portal and the data model with all the relationships between those data. And so you can talk to your portal in natural language. We have a full AI roadmap. This is just the beginning of it, but we have, in my view, in my understanding, we're the only IDP provider with a meaningful AI story at all. But we have a full roadmap of where we're going to take this as well. So I think we're doing the basics extremely well, catalog and self-service, and doing really cool things on the innovation front and kind of taking IDP to the next level, automations, self-service. Um, we're at the beginnings of a notion, kind of tying all these bits together that we call engineering 360, right? So you want to have a full 360-degree of view of your engineering organization, right? Including things like some of the metrics that we have seen, but also the ability to do things like collecting surveys, right? So you can go out and get a survey tool, or you can just build surveys and port, with self-service actions and other assets, right? So we can come here, right, in this engineering leadership section. We have the AI code assistant dashboard, but we also have these dashboards around survey responses. Okay, so we can see we've running services on port itself, running surveys on developer experience. What is your satisfaction with incident management? And we can do analytics and metrics on these surveys. How do we collect these data? Well, we can just, as I said, we can use kind of basic port components to build these things out. So we can use self-service actions to build a survey like this. We want to understand developer productivity, how everyone's feeling about developer productivity. then I can just have all my engineers fill out a survey like this. Just fill out this information, collect these data. I can do analytics on the data, analytics on who's completed the survey, who's not, excuse me, completed the survey, etc. So you can really kind of take the kind of the port components, some of which I haven't talked about in detail, but under the hood of everything I've shown you is what we call a data model, which is the arrangement of all the data. But so taking the basic components of port data model and self-service actions to really build out powerful experiences that even we didn't contemplate. Right? Another common one these days is API cataloging, not a common IDP or not commonly thought of in IDP context. They're purpose-built tools for API cataloging. But if you do that in port, not only can you build out a cataloging API cataloging experience, but you can do it arguably better because you can layer on all this other engineering data. So, for example, if I go to let's see, I believe there is an API dashboard here. So, let's see. Yes. So if I go here, so far, primarily we've been talking about services, okay, and everything's kind of oriented around the service. But maybe you don't think about your assets in terms of the services or only services. Maybe you think about the APIs that are provided to your users, both internal and external, right? And those might be backed by services or something else, right? So, but we can, because you can really model anything you want, we can think about our APIs as objects in port, right? So now we have not services, but we have a catalog of APIs. Okay, so all the different properties that we care about of APIs and charts and analytics on our APIs. Okay, but because the APIs themselves are data models, just like the service and anything else in port, we can reason about them and all the data around them, just like we would the service. So I can go into the authorization API and I can see a host of rich data about the API that's different from the service level data, whether there is an authorization service or not, right? So you can understand whether and the point you should take away from this is whatever your world is, whatever the shape it takes, you can model it in port and make it easier for your users, technical and non-technical, to consume, to reason about, and to action, right? Um, so we have the authorization API. So I can come here, I can tell that it's active or not active. I have a description for the API, tags that are on it. It's visibility. This is custom data. Is this an internal or an external API? Where does this data even come from? Where is it even stored? Right? I don't know, right? As a consumer, right? But I would have to find out if I needed this data. And I'd go Slacking or Confluence or whatever it was if I needed to understand this. And port, you just bring the data in, wherever it's sourced from and make it available to those that need it. Okay. We can see, is the API production ready? We can see that it's a REST API or gRPC or whatever it is, right? Is it compliant and what these things mean to you? So we've got scorecards for our APIs, okay, just like we have for our services, okay? We can have the API spec, up here if we have it for the API. We can have relationships to other data. The API can be related to other things. And this is why the experience might be richer and port than a purpose-built tool, potentially, right? Because we can connect it to all these other things. Is it backed by a service? Oh, it's actually backed by two services, this particular API, the currency service and the authorization service. Okay, wouldn't have been able to connect those dots easily, right? Otherwise. I can see pull requests on the API, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's part of a product pillar, which is a custom data model in this demo environment, right? So maybe you roll up your APIs and your services into domains or product pillars or whatever you call your things. You can reason about them easily and port, model them out. And this capability is unique to port in the IDP landscape. So let me pause there. Um,
There is a question. I've answered some in the Q&A. I would love for you to make sure that I'm correct. And
It's
then
better
there's
if you
a
pause me,
question.
Dre.
Huh?
I've been monologuing. I hate monologuing. Like, it's better if you just stop me and I'll answer the question in real time.
Oh, okay. Well, my bad. I know. I'm sorry. Oh, you just read through them if you want.
So
So
let's see. Okay, and
which
there's Q&A
answer?
or the chat. Let's
The
see.
Q&A. There's one open question that I think I was waiting for you to answer.
Okay, this is a good question. How much effort or time does it take to build an IDP with port? So this is a great question, right? There's all this customizability. We can model our world, but that can sound like cumbersome potentially as well. Okay, so the way it works is you go to port.io, if you engage with us, you get a tenant. And then what will happen is the first thing we're going to do is build out what we think is a suitable tenant, a suitable data model for you based on the tools you have in your organization. So you'll go through a wizard where you select, oh, I use PagerDuty, I use Jira, I use, X, Y, and Z. So then we'll build out a data model based on those tools. So all these relationships and things that I've been showing you will be built out immediately. Okay. We'll also build out some dashboards and things of that sort, assets you can consume, scorecards, etc. Okay. So you'll have a working portal as soon as you get the portal and connect your data to it, where you'll want to go from there. Because and that'll be useful, right? But because software development and running an engineering organization is a bespoke thing, there is no one way to do it, right? Everybody thinks about their stuff differently, reasons about their stuff differently, works on their stuff differently, right? So you'll want to customize. And the customization, I mean, it's that's a difficult question to answer because we're integrating with your stuff. Like if we want a self-service action, to deploy something. The way self-service actions work is port serves as an interface, right? We're gonna let you build a form, collect that data, from your user, but just like your user, we don't know how to deploy in your environment. What we're going to do is invoke some platform capability, a GitHub workflow, or whatever you have or will build to serve that. So does that thing exist? Does it need to be built? Those are totally outside the control of port, right? So like that's usually what drives implementation time is level of customization and level of readiness for that customization internal to your organization. But as soon as you get a portal, that portal will be a working portal, ready to do some things, not custom things, right? Yeah. Mhm. Great question. Mhm. Was
There's some
and
other questions. I can see this. So Sebastian asked if we have support for Argo CD, but is there plan to support cargo? Um, I looked,
oh
to
yeah,
see anything, but I'll let you. Sure, that's good.
yeah, that's an interesting question, and it looks like your answer is sufficient, same as I would give. So integrations are, we is there plan? Not to my knowledge, but we build our integrations just like any other company, right? Based on demand and based on what we think that the needs are. So if I actually haven't heard of Cargo before, but I imagine if there's a confluence of usage in the community that either we would build one, but if you, generally speaking, though, when we're talking about support and integrations in the context of IDP, um, it bears noting that along the two different major categories, self-service and catalog, it means different things. So, and let's take Argo CD. So in the context of integrating Argo C in a catalog point of view, we might want to pull in all your Argo applications and all your Argo assets that you might want to reveal to users if you choose to reveal that to users. But a lot of people don't want their users to see that level of detail, right? What they really want from Argo is us to trigger jobs in Argo to do deployments, right? And that does not require an integration. We're just going to reach out over the internet to, whatever thing you have, a GitHub workflow, what have you, to trigger that job, right? So there's no real integration. So depending on what you really mean, you may or may not need an integration to Cargo, but I'm not aware of any active development efforts for a Cargo integration. But you could build one yourself if you needed one. Our integration framework is open source. We build our integrations with that framework. It's called Ocean. And generally speaking, though, probably not for something like Cargo because it's CI/CD. Actually, maybe depending on what you want. There are easier ways to get data from tools. Most SaaS tools. Than building an integration. I don't, again, Cargo, I'm assuming is a CI/CD tooling, so probably not exposed to the internet. But for most SaaS tools like a Jira or PagerDuty, most tools have event models. So anytime you create an incident in PagerDuty, it will generate an event and send that event anywhere you instruct it. You can send it to port and we will model it just like it was from an integration. It doesn't matter, right? It's just data inside the portal. Once the data is in, it's treated just like every other bit of data in the catalog and in the experiences. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. The answer is no, I'm not aware of active cargo support, but the full answer is you probably don't need support in the sense that you think you do. But so there's a conversation to be had there, and we'd love to have it if if you're trying to do something cool and interesting with the platform.
All right, another question that you can please double check me. They said, can I connect port to local Kubernetes, my laptop, to use local Kubernetes as development environment, and I only have permission to see it in the port?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I mean, depending what you mean by connect, I'll assume you mean running our Kubernetes integration in your development Kubernetes cluster and sending that up to a port tenant. Yeah, that's absolutely possible for development or any other purpose. And then, yeah, you see that data. in port just as if it came from any other cluster that was sending data to port, your laptop or one of your company's production clusters. Yeah. And then you can, from an RBAC point of view, you can set the permissions such that you're the only one to see that data if that's what you wish. Okay.
All right, I think that's all the questions. If
Great
there,
questions.
everyone else can, you can also go on unmute if you would like and ask any questions or type some more. Um, Is there anything else? I know one of the things that we had said in the webinar invite and landing page, Donald, was to talk about some of the cool things you've seen customers do. I don't mean to put you on the spot,
Oh
but
no,
if you
sure,
have
sure.
some cool examples, I think that'd be fun to share.
Yeah, let me think of the coolest. So I actually talked to a customer yesterday that had a use case where they were really a kind of a non-traditional use case. They were enabling their support engineers, their support developers, as they called them, to organize their tickets from their ticket management system and all the associated data around the organization around that ticket. So allowing their support engineers to be more effective in their job by giving them context that they would otherwise have to dive into New Relic or other tools for. So that was a cool use case that I saw recently. Um, More canonical ones. Uh, I mean, not super sexy, but when I see an engineering organization move all their engineers willingly from running GitHub workflows or whatever they were doing to running their deployment self-service action through port exclusively. Not it's more canonical, not not kind of off the beaten path. But anytime I see that, it's a major success for that organization. Certainly, and certainly for us as a company building out a platform that we think delivers real value to our customers. Um, so that's kind of a canonical one. Uh, so a really interesting one that I saw lately that is actually pushing even ports paradigm for IDP uh, to a further than it currently is I had a customer that wanted to treat the data in port as a source of truth, for their engineering organization. Typically we operate with a reverse paradigm where port is not the source of truth, right? We're simply ingesting data from the sources of truth where they live, GitHub, Jira, what have you. But this prospect who did become a customer was interested in the reverse. They wanted Port to be the governor for all changes that happened in the organization, and they wanted changes to only happen in response to changing data in Port. So a service only gets created when somebody creates a service record in Port, right, in the catalog. So they made heavy use, and they're making heavy use of the automations technology, right? Because that implies you need the portal to respond to changes in the portal by making changes in your platform. And that's only enabled by the automations capability that we have and that other IDPs do not, right? So that one was interesting because it's making heavy use of a really unique part of our platform, which actually we think happens to push the paradigm for IDP in general, making it reactive. But this particular customer took it even further by intending to make the port IDP the source of truth for their organization. That is rare,
Yeah,
but super interesting. Yeah. Mhm.
very cool. I don't see any other questions, so happy to wrap if you are good.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. If
Right,
there's no
cool.
more, yeah, I think we're right
Awesome.
on time.
Well, thanks so much. This was really good questions from everyone. I appreciate it. And Donald, thanks so much. This was really a great demo. I think you showed us some awesome things that Port can do. Um, Feel free, everyone that's on here, if you are already joined our community, there will be a follow-up email with this recording and some links to those things. Feel free to reach out to us anytime, always here in the community to answer questions. And really appreciate everyone's attendance. And yeah, that's it. Hope everyone has a great day. Thanks again, Donald, and
Awesome.
see you later. All right, thanks.